before we go into anything with the like ADHD, goal setting and all that stuff, as a coach, right? If you didn't know, I've coached for 7 years now, almost at 10,000 individual calls with real estate agents, coaching calls. A lot of them have ADHD. All of my clients now have it. And so this is based on that, like the stuff that I've seen work time over time. I've had clients in the top 100 in the world, and I've had clients that have gone from 10 deals to 30 deals or 50 deals because I like working with everybody. It depends on what your mission is and where your heart is and how much you want to grow. So before we do any kind of goal setting with anybody, what's really important is to go into the word goal and like what comes up for you. Because, let me, and if you want to raise your hand virtually or physically, annual goal setting, who here gets a little bit of anxiety when you hear that? Annual goal setting. Anybody get a little anxiety around that? A little, okay. And then, okay, yeah. Normally it's a little bit more. Yeah, normally that's really normal. Some people might get excited. Is there anybody here who gets excited by that? There's no anxiety at all? Okay. Do you see that there's no one that's like that doesn't get a little bit of anxiety? Like the majority is a little bit of anxiety. So this is what's called coaching to the person. And that's ADHD agents. That my goal is, instead of you having to pay $1,500 a month to work with me, you get it for $97 a month, and we can help more people at a time. So I'm going to be coming more from like, if we're coaching almost perspective, because I know it's helpful. So it's called coaching to the person. So if as a coach, I went with you and I said, let's do goal setting, and we didn't address the stuff that came up for you, you might go ahead with it. You might be kind of a yes man. You might have anxiety. We're just slapping Band-Aids instead of really naming what's coming up for you. And then that's how you shift really what the word goal means, by airing that out and really acknowledging it. And then you can move on and hit goals. So the word, goal setting, and you can type in the chat if you want. When I say goal setting or annual planning or anything, what's the kind of stuff that comes up for you? What is your gut reaction? We had somebody in the group in KWAHD saying like it can feel overwhelming. I don't think it's going to be good enough. It's not big enough. But then I get intimidated by it. It's not detailed enough. I procrastinate it. I never do it. I don't know if I over or underset the goal. Somebody, Gail said, identify ways to have more transactions. Yeah, it's really a plan. Let's see, trained to hate goal setting by the numbers of leaders that tell me to double my goal. Yep. And then we got excitement and overwhelm. Love to plan, scared to implement. So that's really good too. It can be both at the same time. You can be excited and a lot of anxiety or nervousness around that. Somebody said time blindness. It's planning is a trigger word for them. Overwhelming, right? So I want to make sure people know this is really normal, because when you go to a business plan clinic, typically you think you're the only one. I don't know if anybody was like that. You're looking around, it's like, man, everybody seems like they got it. Why is this just me? And then with ADHD, we can have this fear of failure. And some people don't even set goals because the thought of not hitting it is so crippling that if I don't set a goal, then I avoid this anxiety and pain and beating myself up. And right, there's this whole thing around goal. And that's why it's so important to talk about this first before we go straight into the numbers or just give you, the logical side of things. So it's really important to sit with that. And you don't have to slap it away or do a gratitude list or try to make it go away. Like, let it sit there. Yeah, sadness, fear of failure, overanalyzing. These are all really, really normal. And especially when not our company or whatever, this is just achievement world. There's stuff, like toxic achievement or toxic positivity or something. I'm not saying this is any one company at all. This is just entrepreneur land, right? Like, you either hit it or you don't. You can either, don't change the goal, change the approach. It's very black and white. Like, you do it, there's no exception, or else you fail. And for us with ADHD, neurodivergence, that can be crippling, right? There's no other option. And we can take things more literally, especially if you're on the spectrum. We can take things like black and white, where somebody says you hit it, there's no other option. Well, we go to the extreme, or somebody says growth begins outside your comfort zone. Well, somebody without ADHD might say, oh, I'll get a little uncomfortable and grow. Whereas we can take that literally and like create our own personal hell. So we're so uncomfortable, it's ridiculous because we take it so literally and we go extreme. And it's like we get panic attacks because we're so out of our comfort zone. So again, we can tend towards the all or nothing black and white thinking. That's true for us. And we can kind of take things a little bit more literally. And so the people I've had, because you'd be surprised, agents doing 200-300 deals and they get nervous around setting goals. I mean, you'd be surprised. They don't have some perfect plan. And so the first thing is to redefine what the word goal means to you. And I'll give you some examples by that. So the word goal, one client I had did really benefited a lot by switching the definition of goal to, this thing that you have to hit, this movable object. And if you don't hit it, you fail, to intention. So it's my intention. I'm setting intentions versus I'm setting goals. Another client of mine said, this is how she defined goal. Goal is something you'd like to hit. And if you don't hit it, it's okay. That is actually something that made her hit more sales than she'd ever hit before in her life, is to not have this intense, fear of not hitting it, this absolute. Because the other thing, again, we can get hyper focused and we can abandon ourselves, our family, our hobbies, our self-care, all that stuff, because we get super locked onto a goal. And or again, on the positive side, we can get locked into a goal and nothing else can enter our ecosphere, and we do huge things in a short amount of time. I mean, I've done that, and I know a lot of other people have too. And so that's where, before we even set your goal, we want to have awareness around what that word means, how it's showing up, what you want it to look like. And so if you feel afraid of setting a goal because you get, enveloped by it and nothing else matters, then I would pause and say, okay, this is what I don't want it to look like. What do I want it to look like? How can it exist together? Because again, it's setting intentions. So that, having that just conversation around the word goal, to me is so big for so many people. And also, right, we can have emotion regulation stuff with ADHD. We can get really overstimulated almost, where we might feel like we're about to have a headache or a migraine because we're just so intense with stuff, so overwhelmed. Or we can just be like, I don't even want to do it, or it's so underwhelmed. And so again, it's really about being intentional. So with the goal, just a couple things, couple more. These are 5 top tips just for setting a business plan or a goal here, is keep it simple. And you're going to hear stuff from me that's going to be maybe a little bit different from what you've heard in market centers and stuff like that. We want to keep this simple. And well, I'll say this. So I work for a coaching company, right? You guys know that. And in the past, we had this huge form to fill out where you had to track every little thing. It was super detailed and it was 6 or 7 pages. And clients would get so much anxiety around it, it wasn't even helpful. And so a lot of us stopped using it. And actually, it stopped getting sent out because it was too complicated. So people just froze and didn't even do it, or they did it for the coach. So my number one goal is to keep things simple. If you just have a unit goal for the year, maybe you have just a certain amount of closings you want to hit, and you just work that back. Let's say you want to have, we'll make it easy, let's say 24 closings for the year. And that means, right, how many per month? So if we're doing 20 closings, how many is that per month? 2, right? So it's 2 per month. So only 2. So that's 1 every other week. And so you'd probably need to get a new signed piece of business once a week, right? So you're signing it because you're signing a new piece of business every week, and then every other week, one of those is actually going to go pending, and the other one might fall out, right? So you could have it as simple as that, and that could be it. And so your one thing is to get one new signed piece of business per week, buyer or seller side. That's it. And you don't have all these complicated things. You don't have this sheet you fill out. You're not going to this 7-hour clinic in your office that you sit there and you can't get up and you get anxiety and the lights are too bright and you're getting migraines, right? You could literally keep it that simple. And it's you know what? Forget everything else. I'm just going to get one new piece of business signed per week. And if I don't hit it, I'm going to figure out whatever that strategy is, whatever I feel like doing in the week, and I'm going to do that. And I've had people do huge business by doing like that. So keep it simple. We do really well with simple, remember, because we can laser focus on things. And the more simple we keep things, the more that we can put this incredible effort and hyper focus and make it happen. So we want to keep it really simple, to not overwhelm ourselves, to not shut down. If something doesn't help you or it gives you anxiety, don't use it. Throw it out. So forget what you're told is what I'm telling you, right? Figure out what works with your brain. Because I've had clients that want it really detailed with ADHD, and I've had clients that don't want it at all, right? We go so simple. They would throw up in their mouth if we had to do a very complex business plan, and so we don't. So keep it simple is my number one tip for a business plan. Number two, fill it out with things you like to do that excite you. Your business plan or your intention or your goal, however you define that for the year, should be exciting. Like you're setting an intention that you want for yourself that feels good. That is the point. It is not something to make you anxious. It is not something to just throw you outside of your comfort zone where you're just like a mess and dysregulated the whole year. I don't want a life like that. Do you want to spend an entire year dysregulated and beating yourself up and feeling crappy? No way. So we really want to choose something that's fun for you, that you enjoy, that's exciting to you. And again, with ADHD, we like a challenge. So you might be in the other camp where you get excited by challenge. You want to push yourself. You want to do this really crazy goal that feels like really hard and unreachable. So the thing is, when I'm training coaches around this, that I tell them is, and you can do this for yourself, do not push a client if they're dysregulated. Okay. So what I mean by that is if you're having anxiety and you're kind of a little feeling all over the place or that like that, I'm not going to push you super hard. We're going to kind of regulate you first. If you're already regulated, you're good. Let's go get a challenge. Then push yourself, because you can do more than other people. And it's the same thing for yourself. If you feel panicky and overwhelmed, don't push yourself. Regulate down first and then approach it. Otherwise, you're and resetting. Regulating could be just doing something that's a win a little bit each week for a little bit, and then kind of working up to it. And then what I'll throw in there is like a little side thing because somebody mentioned it. Have you had that? It's like write your goal down and then double it. Anybody heard that? And they get anxiety. Okay, what's your goal? Okay, double it. Okay, double that. That's an exercise that can be really good for expanding our vision. It's not always good, again, if that's not your actual goal. So I'll talk in a little bit of the reasons that people set their goal, and we're going to address that. Make sure your goal is for you. It has to be for you, not for someone else, not because somebody else told you to, not because you're in a class and they told you to do that. It wasn't good enough. Blah. Don't do that. Make sure your goal is for you. You love it. You're excited about it. It's simple. It feels doable. Okay, number 3. Where are my perfectionists at? Anybody perfectionist? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Right? Okay, so here's number 3. Go for good enough. 85% out of 100% is okay. A lot of us can get perfectionists and then get paralyzed, and we don't do it at all. You can always change or edit your goal later. So I know this is like different than a lot of other clinics, but I'm telling you, it helps calm the anxiety down, because when we calm the anxiety down, we outperform everyone. That is how we're wired. So when you get rid of this, like you got to be perfect and just this negative self-talk and this guilt, and you're just like beating yourself down, when you get rid of that, and you give a little bit more freedom, a little bit more flex, what you might see is that you actually exceed the goal that you set. Because I've been doing this for a long time. I have yet to see someone I think is a lazy ADHDer. I have not seen that. Right? If we're on the couch, we're actually probably on our phone trying to get dopamine. Like, come on, get up, go do that thing. It'll take 5 minutes. Come on, what are you doing? Gosh, you're so lazy. Come on. Like, we might look like we're relaxing, but we're probably beating ourselves up. So I'm not afraid as a coach of having a lazy client. That's just not something that I'm afraid of. So by giving that flexibility and that permission to not quite hit it 100%, what I see is actually people do more. So again, good enough is okay. So if you, let's say, for example, you set your goal, like we said in the beginning, 24 units, which means 2 per month, and then that would mean getting one new signed piece of business once a week, right? If you miss a week, it's okay if you don't get it signed. You might get another week with 2. If you're going the first couple weeks and you're just not hitting it, it's okay. It's okay. Think of it as we're practicing to hit that. And part of the reason why I'm starting this now in October 8th, does anybody know why I'm starting this right now? Like October 8th? Why would I do this now instead of closer to January 1? I'll tell you.
I was going to say, because what we do now is going to affect us in
Yes.
January, February.
Yeah. Brittany says, because we'll procrastinate. I love it. Yeah, Gail, 90 days to get closing. Yeah. So there's 2 metrics when we're looking at this. So typically it takes 90 days from a conversation to be a closing. So if you're doing lead generation, you're talking to people and you're really starting to rev up, typically it's about 90 days until that closing. So really we're October 8th, and then the next month would be November 8th, then December 8th. They do that right. November, December, January. So it's actually, hey, Happy New Year. It's January 8th today in contacts world, right? So that's why I wanted to start it last week, but I had no cell service or power and no anything. And, we're floating, canoeing on the river, the street there with Hurricane Helene. Yeah, so that's why I want to start this now. So the conversation you're having now are actually for 2025. And so if you're hitting your goal, awesome, right? If you're not, it's okay. If you didn't hit your goal for 2024, regroup, and you are actually laying the foundation. Have a great start January 1st. You know how many agents have a slow start January 1st? Because right now they're revving down. The weather's getting a little bit colder. People might be getting snow in the next month or 2. It might be a little bit of seasonality. That's why people have a rough first quarter. And when you have a rough first quarter, how do you feel going into second quarter? Not great. And then third quarter, and it's this thing that perpetuates. So I'm doing this now because I want you to have an amazing first quarter and have goals that you feel excited about. So then you have a whole great year and you enjoy your life. Like, that's the point. So 90 days from a conversation to a contact. And then also a lot of people, it takes about 45 days for something to close. So, if we look at it, what is it? I think November 15th is probably for a lot of you the last day that you can get something pending where it's actually going to close in 2024. So November 15th, which is about 5 weeks away. So you have 5 weeks left to get a pending for it to close this year. So that's why I want to start this now and kind of things, so then we can get you really geared up to have an amazing 2025. So that's the point. So go for good enough. And so kind of back to that point, if you set your intention, you set your goal, and you really feel good about it, you're not hitting what you need to hit, what's really neat, if you start now, you get to practice. So instead of tomorrow, now you got to be this producer that's doing, 25% more than you were last year. Boom, you're supposed to, no, let's ease you in and get you good at those activities, because you're not going to wake up tomorrow and all of a sudden be a different agent that does double the amount of business. It's just not going to happen, So we want you to start practicing. So if you don't hit it right away, be curious. Don't beat yourself up. Be curious. Hey, what could I have done different? Why didn't this work? Start being a detective. So then when, you really hit November 15th, you're in a really good spot and you know what's going on. So number 4, and we talked about this, understanding having anxiety around numbers, financials, budgets. It's so normal. You're not the only one. You're actually part of the majority. And so don't shame yourself if you don't know your numbers when you're doing business planning. If you've been avoiding numbers until now because it gives you anxiety, that's not an excuse. It is an explanation of why you've been avoiding numbers, because you haven't had the tools. They don't teach about money. They don't teach about finances in school. A lot of our parents don't know. I mean, mine didn't, and so if you get anxiety around that stuff or you don't know it, whether you take our ADHD friendly business plan clinic or a different one, don't feel crappy about yourself if you don't know your numbers. Most don't. And again, go for the best guess on that stuff and don't shame yourself. I just want to reiterate that. It's really normal to have anxiety, and it's normal to not want to look at it, and then number 5 is lean into what drives you. So are you competitive? Do you like a challenge? Are you motivated by competing against someone else? Or are you motivated by maybe there's a certain demographic or a charity that you want to get, is there all day long that you design your business around? Do you like creativity and marketing and then you focus on fun things? So We want you to lean into things that you enjoy, that will make you stand out, right? Because we have hyper focus and we have this incredible passion and energy for people, for things and people, whereas a non-ADHD person, they're going to get tired. They're going to go home, they're going to be, and that's why that advice, do the reading 15 minutes a day. It can work for some of us, but for some of us, we might do a binge reading on a Saturday because we're into it and read 5 hours and get it all then, instead of having to take 3 months to do 5 to 10, 15 minutes of reading every single day at the same time because it's too rigid, So again, as long as you hit your goal, the way you get there does not matter. As long as you hit your goal, the way you get there, it does not matter. Don't beat yourself up. Go for good enough. Practice. We want to ease you into it. So the other thing I want to talk about is like the main reason agents choose their goal for the year, because this is helpful too. That's a question I get a lot, is like, how do I choose my goal? Do I do what I did last year? Do I do a certain percentage over? Do I want to hit something in the market center and hit a ranking? Is it about GCI, commission? Is it about units? I don't know. And so that's why I think this is really important. So there are 6 different ways that I see people generally set their goal and the reasons, and all of them are good. It's which one is exciting to you. So number one, and they're not necessarily in order. So number one is profit and what you're going to do with it, who you're going to help, what it would do for your family. So this is like, let's say your goal is to have 300,000 in commission for the year. And we're going to say your profit margin, meaning out of that 300,000, you're going to keep half of it, right? That's what they mean when they say profit margin, is like what of your profit of your gross commission out of 100%, what percentage do you actually take home in profit? That's the profit margin. So let's say we spend 50% on expenses and we keep 50%. So if our goal is $300,000 in GCI, then what are we going to do with that 150,000, which is half? And that can kind of tie into the big why, right? What are you going to do with it? Who you're going to help? What does it mean to your family? So again, these can all kind of tie in, but it's profit. It's like the money. That's what matters. It's not about a unit goal. It's not about a ranking. It's not about a certain percentage that you want to beat. It's profit. So that's number one. Number two is they base it off of what they did this year. And so this might be you if it's more about, hey, I just want to see growth. I want to know that I'm growing. And that's a reason that some people choose a goal. I want to do the same I did last year. I want to do double. I want to do the same that I did last year, but I want to work 2 days less. I've had clients that say, hey, I don't want to do more than 50 units, but I want to work 3 days less. And if I do more than 50 units, I'm going to be upset with you as a coach. So we work on the systems. We work on, the leverage, that kind of stuff. We keep it at 50, but now you have half of your week left. Or again, some people say, I want to double this year, no matter whatever it takes, I'm all in, because I'm ready to grow. I'm ready to commit to something. So you could base it off of what you did this year. Number 3, it's a challenge. It pushes you. It makes you grow. So some people just like a challenge. That's kind of like, hey, I want to do double. I want to do something that pushes me so outside my comfort zone that in order to hit that goal, I have to grow and be a different person to hit that. That's a motivation for people too, is to really push themselves, because what I've learned is with a lot of clients is that it's not, I don't know, it's not it's some, but there's not a lot that I just want to make a ton of money, which is totally okay if that's what you want to do. It's usually about personal growth or taking care of somebody or someone, or along those lines. Because we're very growth oriented. And what I've seen is, once you have your basic expenses paid, our demographic, our population with ADHD really values growth and learning. And we're just, as Albert Einstein said, we're curious. We're very curious. So it's a challenge that pushes you, makes you grow. Number 4, competitive. So they might set a goal based on the rankings in their office or their region. If I did over 50 units, it would put me in the top 5% in the office out of all the realtors. So they set it more as a benchmark to hit a goal. And then, I've had people, clients where we go for number 1 in the market, in the whole market, or number 2, So it might be that you have a certain ranking. And again, it's kind of growth oriented, you know. Number 5, you have a team. And so it's your goal plus your individual members' goals. If you have a team, which I'll show you a little bit of what we have, but if you have a team, one of the biggest mistakes I see is, even if you have one agent on your team, the biggest mistake I see in goal setting is, okay, our team needs to do this many units. Me and my coach said it. Therefore, agent on my team, I need you to do this many units. That is the biggest mistake, because that agent is not attached. It's not their goal. It's your goal. So you need to set your goal if you're owning a team. And then you need to do what we do with you, with your team member, to make sure that their goal means something, and that they really want it and that they understand why. Really, really important. So you might set a goal because it's your goal and the team goal, individual team. And then number 6, you run the economic model, which I'll tell you about in a second, and you choose what feels like a stretch, but also doable after seeing your numbers. So here's what I mean by that. And I'm going to show you what we're going to do. So this is the economic model. I'm going to do a screen share. Okay. So this is with the ADHD Friendly Business Planning Clinic. This is, and there's going to be a little bit of updates on here too. I'm not going to show you the new one quite yet, but it's similar. So just so you know, this is dyslexia friendly, dyscalculia friendly, dysgraphia friendly. It does all the math for you. So everything in green, you're going to put in whatever your numbers are, or leave the averages for the average agent that we have in there, or you can change it. And then it's going to tell you exactly, based on your conversion rate, how many listings you need to sign per year, how many listing appointments you need to go on, how many listings you need to sign, how many you're going to sell, what your total GCI and volume is. So for example, let's say your goal is 30, right? You can put that number in there. And then let's say we're just doing this together, right? You say, hey, I want to do 30, right? And then we say, okay, let's do 50% sellers, 50% buyers. So this is how you want to split that up. So you're closing 15 goals, 15 sales for the seller, 15 sales for the buyer. And then we might go through your conversion rates, meaning of the listing appointments you go on, 65% of the time they sign with you, and then when you sign a listing, 75% of those sell. And again, if you don't know these numbers, most people don't. So we're going to guess. These are agent averages. By the way, then how many weeks are you going to work? Let's say you're going to work 46, you're going on vacation. So what this does, when you switch this, you'll see, so it tells you exactly what your total commission is going to be, and then your total volume. And you can even come down here and you can adjust your average sale price, right here. Okay, so you'll see these numbers swap up here. So why do I say this is goal setting? Because you have to want to do this every time. So if you put 30 in and you're super excited about it, and then you look and it's like, oh my God, I have to sign almost a new listing a week, and I've been signing 1 month. Well, to adjust very quickly and do 4 times the amount you're doing, or maybe this is the next year's goal. And we want to give you something as a stepping stone in between, so you don't start out the gate where they've got this huge thing and you just flop on your face and then you never do it again. So this is why this is really important, and this is one of the first things we go over in the clinic. Next week, I'm going to give you a template of just this. So you're going to get this next week. I'm going to go more in depth on goal setting. So again, the Tuesday calls are not going to change. We're actually going to give you more, but this is the light version. Whereas with the ADHD Friendly Business Plan Clinic, you get the budget model. We're going to talk about that. You're going to get a lead gen model. We're going to do your a touch plan, right? GPS. We're going to give you a tracking sheet. I'm going fast, I know, but like resource library of all this stuff. So again, this is Tuesday calls are going to be the light version. So this is why I really like to do this, because this is where you're sitting there. It's like, oh man, I'm going to double it. Like I'm going to do 100 units, and then you look and it's like, whoa, well, that's 2 a week. So either, okay, what would that look like? What do I need to do? And maybe you stretch and you figure it out. Or you say, oh, that's not bad at all. Actually, yeah, let's bump that up. My team's already doing that. Let's do 150, So we also don't want to underset your goal when you're capable of more. So that's why I want to see, like, what does that actually mean on a weekly basis? Because that's what this says. It means you need to go on 0.7 listing appointments a week, and you need to sign one every other week. So this person with doing 30 sales would just need to sign 2 listings a month. Does this make sense? Am I going too fast over the math, or is this okay? Okay, a little bit. Okay, I'll go slower over this next week too. So again, because I know it gives anxiety, and I talk fast because I have ADHD, so I will slow it down. So basically the point of this, and we'll talk about it more next Tuesday, is that I want you to be able to plug in your unit goal and see what that actually means for your life. What does that mean for your quality of life? What does that mean on a weekly basis that you're going to do? And this is called the economic model. And I've got the page numbers for the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book if you want to look at more. So those are the main reasons that people set goals. And then what I'll say too is what's important is some people will do like a quarterly goal. There's something called the 12-week year that I've gotten a lot of feedback that people like. And what that means is you just set a 90-day goal. So instead of this big annual goal, you just say, here's what I'm going to do in the next 90 days. And then here's what I'll do the next 90 days. So you chunk it down and you make it smaller versus this big, this big thing. And then what I'll say too, with a goal, we always want to have some kind of like deadline around it. They have what's called SMART goals. Has anybody heard of SMART goals before? The acronym? Okay. So SMART goals, and we'll send a graphic out in the notes. Now that I'm back, I can do the newsletters again. But SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So we want to make sure it's specific, right? So instead of, I want to close more for sale by owners this year. It's like, well, how many? Well, I want to close 7. Okay. And then we want to make sure it's attainable. How many did you close last year? Well, none. Okay. So that means we need to do one, almost every other month. So let's make that attainable, or maybe it's too much of a stretch. And then relevant, and then timely. So we want it. So as my mentor Diana Kokoska used to say, I'd say, here's my goal. She'd say, by when? That's a big one. I'd like to do this thing. Okay, by when? Well, I want to clean up my database. By when? They're really important, and it's really intention setting. I'd like to pay off debt. By when? How much? By when? That's just having like a date in mind is going to change so much for you. So let's say annual goals is like giving you anxiety. You don't want to do the annual goal. It feels too big. Maybe you want to choose right now to kind of ease yourself into the word goal and liking that. Maybe you choose a couple small goals, right, or intentions, and you kind of ease yourself in, and you just have a deadline, and you get momentum first before you set a big one, Or maybe you're super excited and you set a huge goal and you do it all extensive. Again, all of our brains are different, right? And so somebody mentioned too, like your why. Why are you an agent? Why do you do this? Why do you want to do this? And I'll say, I could just keep going, but I'm going to stop here in a minute. What I'll say about the big why, if you haven't heard of that, it's like, yeah, why are you doing this? Some people think it has to be this thing that makes you cry, right? Super emotional. It's this huge thing. You got to help orphans in Africa, or you got to do this big thing. It can be. It could also be your big why could be just to do a really good job with your clients every day. Like that could be it, that you just are really present and you do a great job with your clients. It could be your family. It could be that you want to donate somewhere. So again, it doesn't have to be some epic, crazy, huge thing for it to be a good big why. It could be that it just means something to you. Thank you for all the support. And let me know if you need anything, and we'll see you next week.